Kermit, West Virginia is a community in Mingo County near the Kentucky border. It was incorporated in 1909 and named for Kermit Roosevelt, who is the son of President Theodore Roosevelt. Kermit is situated along the Tug Fork River. It has a population of around 500 people. Mingo County, West Virginia had never suffered a major mine disaster until January 18, 1951, when the #1 mine at Kermit Burning Springs Company exploded. The mine was opened in 1942 and located 21 miles west of Williamson, West Virginia. It employed 80 men, and 68 of those men worked underground. The Burning Springs mine is so named because of its location above natural gas vents. Long before the arrival of European settlers, it is believed that the Native Americans recognized and perhaps used it as a fuel source. It is known that Andrew Lewis and his Virginian troops camped at Burning Springs in 1756 on their march to attack Indians in Ohio. These are the original people that named it Burning Springs. At the time of the accident, 45 men were inside the mine. However, the explosion was confined to only one section. 13 men were working in the section that blew, and 11 men were killed instantly. Shortly after the explosion, a motorman delivering a trip of empty cars near the site noticed smoke and dust in the haulage way. He immediately notified the outside mine office of his findings. The superintendent, T.L. Lambert, went underground to investigate. Mr. Lambert headed to the mine, where he saw a mine foreman and crew who were not affected by the explosion coming out of the mine section. He then organized a rescue party which found a motorman and a loading boom operator alive and uninjured, but heat and smoke forced the rescue crew back. After a while, when ventilation was restored after much work, the search continued. They then found 5 bodies. A watch was found in one of the victims which had stopped at 11:51 a.m., which indicated the time of the explosion. Ira Goebel and his team were the nearest team in the area and the first to arrive. However, a federal mine inspector refused to let them go in without a backup team, which is a rule that remains to this day. The inspector was told that Pond Creek Rescue had been called and was expected shortly. So even though it was a federal law to have a backup team on hand, Ira's team went in anyways. When the team located the bodies, they knew that someone had already been inside the mine and had examined the bodies. Ira grew up with Charlie Sparks and knew his son Proctor, who were victims in this tragedy, so it was a dismal task recovering their bodies. They were only allowed to bring out 2 bodies at a time, which were placed in a waiting ambulance and quickly taken away. They didn't want the families to witness the condition of their loved ones' bodies, so Ira's team stayed with the mine until they were signaled to bring out 2 more bodies. Outside of the mine, many women and children, family members, friends, stood around waiting as they carried the bodies out. One for curiosity, but more so to know if your family member had lived or died, and most people at this point knew what was coming. People stood around watching silently, it was reported, or slumped over, crying, women weeping, children crying every time a mangled body would emerge from the dark opening. So after a while, they tried to not bring the bodies out in a way that could be seen by everybody, but this was a hard task. The mine explosion hit many families hard. It left 11 widows and over 36 children without their father. But it hit 3 families really hard. Tom Moore and his son Tom Jr. were among the dead, as well as Charlie Sparks and his son Proctor. 2 brothers, Conrad and Delbert, were killed along with their brother-in-law, Walter Johnson. But the story even continues to get worse. When all the bodies were recovered, the superintendent thanked them and said they'd be paid for their time. Several weeks passed without the team receiving any payment, so Ira and a couple of the men went to see the superintendent, who claimed, "Well, I thought I paid you." So they went into the bookkeeper and asked Ira how much they owed them. Ira said, "Whatever you think is fair." So the superintendent told the bookkeeper to give them a check for $50. They made it out to Ira since he was the captain. He cashed the check in Kermit, and the men told Ira to keep the extra $2. So Ira got $10, and the other members got $8 for risking their lives and being scarred for life by what they saw and had to do. At a hearing held on January 23rd, 5 of the company employees who assisted with the recovery of the bodies admitted they searched the bodies and removed all smoking articles so investigators would not find them. They said that the articles were removed from the bodies and were hidden and later discarded into a garbage can at the bathhouse. So why did this explosion even happen? Well, investigators said that there is 3 poorly made splices in the trailing cable that could have set off a spark. Also, smoking could have caused it. That could not be discounted. So it was declared an accident. And it wasn't the fault of the carelessness of either mine officials or the men working, but the disaster left behind 11 grieving widows and over 36 fatherless children. Among the dead are Sherman Fields, who is a driller, 34 years old, 7 children. Conrad Dalton, driller, 43, 3 children. Walter Johnson, machine operator, 44, 2 children. Delbert Dalton, buggy operator, 27, 2 children. Loki Mounts, electrician, 43, 6 children. Charlie Porter, timberman, 56, 6 children. John Chafin, section boss, 31, 3 children. Proctor Sparks, 2 children. Thomas Moore, 23, no children. Thomas Moore Sr., 48, 5 children. Charlie Sparks, helper, 51, 1 child. And the story continues to get worse. According to Anna, none of the widows were awarded any money for the loss of their husbands, and then they evicted all the women from their homes to make room for new miners. Shirley was 31 when her husband was killed. She didn't drive, she didn't work, her husband managed all their bills. After his death, she raised her children on Social Security and workmen's compensation. Anna was 4 years old when her dad was killed and remembers that his casket was brought home, as was the custom back then. Her aunt and uncle held her up to view his body. The top of his head was blown off and he had a bandage around his head. His casket was the only one that could be opened. The other men were burned too badly to have an open casket funeral. I'm sure Mother was in shock for some time after Dad's death, and we were all so young. She never talked about the accident, Anna said. So on this 72 years after the Burning Springs mine explosion, we just want to pay some respect to the people that died and to bring some human life to the tragedy and loss that occurred.
It's a rainy Wednesday afternoon. As you can see, we're at the edge of Kermit, West Virginia. It's right there. It's a little teeny tiny community, 300, 400 yards long, something like that. Starts right on the other side, still here. This is the actual site of the Burning Springs Colliery. This is a little caboose here. And this is the memorial right here. Like we mentioned, there was 11 coal miners killed in this explosion. It left all 11 were family men. It left 11 widows, and depending on the count, a minimum of 36 orphans. The state had one of the miners listed as not having children when he did, but anyway, left from this. And the cross on the memorial there, the cross, is actually coal from the mine itself. Very somber thing. This was Mingo County's first major mine explosion. You know, we'd had accidents and stuff like that, and other places had had explosions. And this was the heart of the billion-dollar coal field. This was where, you know, coal had this was coal's heart, the heart of the coal fields. And this right here, this really drove home the possibilities, you know, that what really can happen in a coal mine. Not only can you know, lose your life, whole families can be wiped out, whole communities can be just decimated when stuff like this happens. But I noticed they've got right here, I mentioned yesterday, or yeah, in our other video about coal mines, about the kettle bottoms. I don't know if y'all saw the video or not, but look here. There's a good example of kettle bottoms right here. Now that looks like, it looks like a tree, right? It's not. This is fossilized. This is solid rock. That's what those things look like when they come out and smash everybody. But anyhow, that's yesterday's video. We're going to be visiting. I wanted to visit this spot first and show you where this was at, tell you a little bit about it. But after it was all said and done, they never did pay the guys for going back down in there after the explosion. That's how this kind of stuff worked here. That's how these companies treated you. You were nothing. Okay, you were nothing. Like I said in the other video, a mule was the equivalent of 10 men. The price of a mule was 10 men. They did not care about you or your family in any way. They cared about money, and that's it. Nothing else. Nothing else mattered. But we're going to be going from here. All of the graves, all of the victims are buried nearby. And there's their names and ages, where they lived, all that sort of stuff. Heather's going to have some other information. But we're going to be visiting right here. Thomas More Sr. and Thomas More Jr. They're buried not far from here. We're going to visit them because this was, like I said, this was, remember I told you this could wipe out whole families? That was a father and son. Yes. They worked together in this mine, and both of them lost their lives that day. But apparently the explosion itself, it was said that there were cables arcing in the mine, and they think that that's what caused the explosion. But there was the possibility that someone was smoking. So yeah, we'll just say it's nobody's fault. Yeah, that's how they did it. That was the official version of the explosion. We know there were cables arcing, and there was a methane leak, you know, that hadn't been attended to. We know about that. But there's a possibility someone was smoking, so, you know, we'll just say it's not their fault. Yeah, that's how this went. That's how it went down. That was very common though back in the day. That was pretty much it. You know, the company men, they towed the company line. The government officials, they towed the company line. That's just how it worked. That's just the way it was. You know, if you want to feed your family, you go along with it. You go to work and you do your job. Maybe you came back, maybe you didn't. We're going to head on up from here. I think Heather, she's at home. She's doing doing the research end, putting things together, doing some editing, getting things ready. And I'm out here doing some of the footwork today. It's a good thing about having a guide in the family. You can go find his stuff, huh? But check this out. I saw this as I pulled in. Not exactly sure how it's related, but you know, it's obviously part of the same system. Look at that. It's smoke. Was it not? Take a look inside real quick before we head out for the graveyard. Wow. That entrance is not even waist high. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't really have a light with me. Has a little footnote here, and this is directly across the street from the entrance. You can see there's my car, the caboose, and the little marker right there with the cross on it and the Kermit sign. Directly across the street from it, this site was also the camp of General Andrew Lewis later. They were on their way in 1756 to go attack some Indians. We're going to kill a bunch of Indians. And I've mentioned this expedition in our tour before. It's how the Tug River and, you know, all that stuff, that's how it got its name. They're the ones who named it. But, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Just run across the street real quick and show you this. That they actually camped right there at the entrance to that mine. Back up in there was the mine. And right here's the entrance to it, and the marker I said, like I said, right there. But I just thought that was interesting, you know, that they actually camped here on this very same spot. Thought I'd show y'all that. I found it. Wasn't that far. It's only, as the crow flies, it's only about 2 miles from the site of the mine explosion to this graveyard. It's about 6 miles by road. The last section is up a little dirt road, a little gravel. The curve's kind of steep. It's kind of, you know, it's a little bit rough, but we made it. We had to pick up a little speed, get around the curve in the mud, but we made it. But it starts over here where I'm parked at, goes up the hill and back out around that way. And we're looking for the Moors. I figure we'll go up top, start up there. I've got an idea of the headstone we're looking for. Should be one of the large ones, something like that. Has 3 names on it. Can't read the date on that one. There's somebody, sounds like popping off a 22 shell or two. Emory Parsley, Virginia, U.S. Army, World War I. Can't really tell any dates. Look here. Almost walked right by it. This is it. Right there. Father and son killed in the same explosion. And if you notice, Cora Lee, she lived for, I think it was 28 years, something like that, afterward. Like I said, this really brought home the dangers inherent in mass coal production, coal mines, and how poorly the company would actually treat you if something did happen. They both lost their lives mining coal, father and son. And then the mother, Cora Lee, the coal company went out of their way to make sure that she never got a dime. It's terrible, isn't it? Rest well.